difference in this game. First quarter, we told you about LeBron James at 21, but Jaylen Brown didn't let it get away from him. Uses a pick from Aaron Baines, knocks down the three, and Brown letting the crowd know about it. He had 14 in the first quarter to help the Celtics keep pace, keep it manageable. 23, 7 rebounds, and 3 assists for the game. Jason Tatum gets the finger roll to go on Larry Nance Jr. Tatum, 11 points on 5 for 12 shooting. The shots are evenly distributed between their starting five, and then Baines and Smart off the bench. Terry Rozier got it going in the third quarter. He's going to leak out here and wind up with a flush at the other end. Rozier, 18 points, including 14 in the third quarter. All 5 starters in double figures for Boston, including Rozier, Tatum, and Brown. And then there's Marcus Smart off the bench, who just does a little bit of everything. Al Horford puts up the 3, and Smart just keeps it alive. Jason Tatum misses, but there's Smart putting it back in. 11 points, 9 assists, 4 steals for him. And then later, Al Horford fouled hard by J.R. Smith. And Smart coming to his teammates' defense after the foul. Smith assessed a flagrant foul. Smart would have to be restrained as he walked back to the bench. So lots to talk about before Game 3 Saturday in Cleveland. The Celtics going to take Game 2, 2-0. Celtics, they take Game 2 to go up 2-0, outworking and outscoring Cleveland in the second half. They outscored them by 20 points in the second half. Difference in shot quality, a big reason why. 36 of Cleveland's 39 shots after halftime, an astounding 92% were contested. Cavaliers, meanwhile, contested only 58% of Boston's second half shots. For more on Game 2 between the Cavaliers and Celtics, Stephen A. Smith joins us now. So, Steve, just 39 second half points for the Cavaliers. How much of that was Cleveland's ineffectiveness on offense, and how much of that was Boston's turning up the defense?
Well, I'm going to give credit to Boston's defense. They amped it up. They got all up in Cleveland's behind. They chased them off the three-point line. We know all of that. But where the alarming element of the Cleveland Cavaliers really comes in the fold was their defensive tenacity or flagrant lack thereof. There were a lot of open layups that they gave up. There was a cheap shot by J.R. Smith. There's nobody that can deny that. You can't push Al Horford in the back the way that he did. And you know, when you look at them defensively, they just didn't seem on the same page. Jeff Van Gundy came up to me with the line of the year. He talked about how there's more eye rolling on the Cleveland Cavaliers than couples in a bad marriage. That's what he said, and it was absolutely hilarious and absolutely accurate. When things go awry, they disband, they fragment, and that's what I think you saw tonight against the Boston Celtics. And against Boston, that's the worst thing that you can do, because if nothing else, Brad Stevens has them being an absolute together unit. They spread the floor, they share the basketball, they sacrifice for one another, they play together. And that's not something we saw from the Cleveland Cavaliers in the second half, which is why they're down 2-0 in this series, and they are in a must-win situation for Game 3.
All right, so Boston's been great all postseason at home. They haven't lost at home. What kind of effect do you think the change of scenery could have on this series? Or is this just something that's not going to be corrected that easily?
Oh, the potential is there for the series to shift dramatically, because the Boston Celtics don't appear to be the same team on the road that they've been at TD Bank Garden throughout this postseason. Against Milwaukee, to a lesser degree against the Philadelphia 76ers, they don't appear to be themselves. They clearly amp it up to an extraordinary level whenever they're on their home court. But now they have to go into LeBron's house in Cleveland. It could be the last few games of LeBron James' career in Cleveland. A matter of fact, I would label that likely. And so when you take that into consideration, you certainly don't want to go out stinking up the joint and bum rushed and beat down on your own home turf. I suspect that the Cleveland Cavaliers will respond to the challenge. I think they've got a really good chance of evening up this series, but obviously we're at a point where we simply cannot sleep on the Boston Celtics right now. They're young, they're vibrant, they're fearless. They don't give a damn about LeBron James and the rest of the crew. They want them. Jaylen Brown has been telling me for a year they wanted them bad, and he has played like it. And oh, by the way, the backcourt for the Cleveland Cavaliers, J.R. Smith and George Hill, were outscored by Jaylen Brown and Terry Rozier, Boston's starting backcourt, 41-3. That is just absolutely positively embarrassing. The kind of performance that J.R. Smith and George Hill should be absolutely positively ashamed of. They are better than this. They know it. but they showed up and gave you absolutely nothing. And they contributed to the level of depression that appeared to kick in with the Cleveland Cavaliers in the second half, because when you see guys in your starting backcourt that anemic, it will zap the life out of you. And that's what it seemed to do to the Cleveland Cavaliers in the second half. Plus, it would have helped if LeBron James, despite the triple-double, elected to take his 260-plus pound body inside instead of shooting a bunch of fall-away jumpers.
Yeah, a lot of outside shots for Cleveland when that offense
Too many.
just didn't make it happen in the second half. Steve, as always, we appreciate it, my man.
No doubt. Take it easy, man.
And Stephen A., I pray you got some Swedish fish somewhere between New York City and Houston to give yourself a little bit of energy, man.
Nestle's Crunching Bunch. Nestle's Crunching Bunch, Scott. Nestle's Crunching Bunch. That's what I jumped on.
Whatever you need to get you where you got to go. I want to ask you about
Tell me about it.
and Brad Stevens, man, because obviously we're going to focus in on the floor, but we're going to focus in on that coaching matchup. What have you noticed thus far?
Well, first of all, when you look at Brad Stevens, you're seeing one of the top two coaches in all of basketball. We've literally gotten to the point where we're talking about him in the same breath that we talked about Greg Popovich of the San Antonio Spurs, and he's devoid of a championship, obviously, but you see the way this team is connected. You see the adjustments that he makes. More importantly, you see his own players calling him a genius and going all out and giving max effort, and you're oblivious or indifferent to the changes and the adjustments that he feels to need to make when it compromises their playing time or whatever. That speaks to his greatness as a coach. I respect the hell out of Ty Lue. I think Ty Lue is a champion. He knows what he's doing, and it's pretty difficult to judge him besides that point. You have to look at the Cleveland Cavaliers, and while you're tempted to hold him accountable, a coach, when you know what you're doing schematically and you're tried and proven in that regard, it gets to a point out where you have to look at guys' effort. You saw this game in the second half. Where the hell was Cleveland's effort? It was non-existent. It was nowhere to be found. It was an embarrassing effort in the third quarter. Your backcourt combined shooting 1 for 11 from the field in George Hill and J.R. Smith, who ultimately ended up getting outscored a combined 41-3 as the starting backcourt for Cleveland compared to Jaylen Brown and Terry Rozier. That's just an embarrassment beyond measure. I mean, they're on the back of milk cartons right now, for crying out loud. There's an APB out for all of them. We don't know where the hell they are right now. And so if you're looking at LeBron James, you're not getting any help whatsoever, and you have to wonder when that's going to have a contagious effect on the team where you're going to see such lackluster effort. And then all of a sudden you saw it. In the third quarter, they stopped playing. Look at the wide open layups that the Boston Celtics were registering. And then to make matters even worse, that was a flagrant foul by J.R. Smith, pushing Al Horford in the back. But then when Marcus Smart got in his face, he shoved Marcus Smart again. That could have easily been another flagrant, and it could have been an automatic ejection. So he got away with something there as well. In the end, what it comes down to is that they looked lethargic, they looked indifferent, they literally looked like they quit. And when you have an experienced squad led by the best player in the world, I don't know how much you hold the coach accountable for that when you clearly see this flagrant lack of effort. It's a problem. And if they don't get it right in Game 3, they might get swept. It's a bad situation in Cleveland right now. Just an embarrassment.
Yeah, it's stunning. We'll see if going home is the recipe to turn this thing around. Stephen A., appreciate your time. Sir, please get some rest.
All right, man.
Thank you.
I got a couple more hits, but I'll be all right.
Well, I'm done with you. At least put your feet up for a minute. Thank you. Stephen A. Smith with us here. Game into the sixth inning. The Boston Celtics, and let me start here. We see things through the prism typically of the favorite, and LeBron James has earned that role as a man who's been to the finals in 7 consecutive seasons between Miami and in Cleveland. But this Celtic team was slept on against Philly. They were a gigantic underdog against the Sixers. Underdogs in every game up until they were bet into being the favorite in Game 6. They're underdogs in this series against Cleveland, and you understand why. And LeBron James comes out and does exactly what you would expect LeBron James to do, which is play to this level, 42 and a triple-double. But it's a Boston team that has a ferocious pride, an incredible fighting spirit, and depth. And a critical sequence here right before the end of the first half. They're down double digits. They score there. Marcus Smart to Marcus Morris. And then a little casual with the ball. Smart was actually stumbling and bothered by his knee, but they cut into that lead, so they're down single digits. Now Scary Terry time. Rozier, unafraid of the moment, of the stage, and all of a sudden you blink, it's a 2-point game, and Kyrie giving what he can give, which is moral support. But this team's got plenty of heart and plenty of fight. And Marcus Morris is on the ground barking in Tristan Thompson's face. Then they get whooping at one another. And then back at each other they go. Morris, Thompson both issue technicals. But this Celtic team that has such depth. 7 different players had 9 or more in the game. Now, Smart, this is the one thing he's not great at. Not a great shooter, but he does everything else, and he buries that 3, and now the C's are up by 1. LeBron James, who got off to this enormous start, dishes to J.R. Smith, who misses. Ball gets batted away, and there goes Rozier. And Rozier knows, I got to dunk this quick because LeBron will jump and block it on me. And the building in Boston is alive as the Celtics now lead by 3. That's kind of the move LeBron's made famous. Then it's Aaron Baines. He's the most effective 3-point shooter in the playoffs. They're up 5. Then LeBron again, who got out to the roaring start. No, let's run. Woo, woo, woo. I don't know what happened there. Well, we're going to get to this. Rozier, all 3 of these. And so the stretch at the end of the second quarter and then the third quarter gives the Celtics a big boost, and they go on to win. And you see the Cavaliers' attempts there. There's the difference that in the third quarter, they outscored the Celtics 36. The Celtics outscored the Cavs 36-22 and turned that deficit into a lead. Cavaliers took 22 shots in the third quarter. 20 of them were contested by a Celtic defender. The Cavs 9 of 22, and now the Cavaliers face a 2-0 deficit. And we welcome in Jeff Van Gundy. Jeff, an egregious error to not list you, because obviously we would have done so, because if they're going to list Mark Jackson, we should list you.
Don't try to apologize now, Scott. It's too late.
I'm not in charge of graphics. I'm only in charge of asking questions, so I'm going to do the best job I can with that. And we had to presume that we would see LeBron James be great. He was. How did Boston absorb that and get to where they are, up 2-0?
Well, you've mentioned a lot in your highlights. To me, they've always been the better team. They're more talented. They're quicker, faster, more depth, more range shooting from more different people. So, to me, they just have a superior talent base after you get past James, and then they also have a superior toughness right now and a togetherness. That was an outstanding response to the onslaught that they faced to start the game from James. And let's get to togetherness. Your quote, and I'm going to paraphrase as best I can, about the Cavs: more eye rolls than a couple in a bad marriage. What's your sense of the disconnect with this Cleveland team right now? Well, that can go up and down. I don't think it's actually any different than when they win sometimes. I just think they're a team that is always one step away from a dramatic overreaction to one basket scored against them, one ball thrown away. You don't see that often. I think sometimes James's greatness can camouflage a lot that goes on that Ty Lue has to deal with. I do not think by any stretch of the imagination that he has an easy group to deal with. Jeff, appreciate the time. We'll see you on Saturday. Thanks for being with us. All right.
SportsCenter on the Road is confidently presented by Rocket Mortgage by Quicken Loans.
Tim Legler alongside, and Tim, we'll get to the James portion of the highlight, and he was sensational to start this game. And I'll start with Boston because they're where we should start because of the heart, the fight, the toughness, the depth, all the things that make them what they are. How'd they win this game?
For me, the biggest difference between the two teams is Boston has more multidimensional players that can affect the game in a lot of ways. Cleveland has a lot of one-dimensional players outside of LeBron James and Kevin Love, who can rebound and score. The rest of those guys are so limited compared to Boston's players. And for me, where you saw the game get away was the speed of the Boston Celtics in the third quarter on situations when the Cavaliers clearly had defensive balance and weren't able to make it happen. And I'll get to it right now.
Okay.
You take a look at what I'm talking about. This is a short shot by Tristan Thompson. And look at what we got. So we got 4 Boston Celtics, basically 90 feet from the rim. You've got 1 Cav in the mix. You know what that means? That means you've got 4 Cleveland Cavaliers back over half court before this ball is out of Aaron Baines' hand. So how does this happen? Jaylen Brown comes up right here, frees it. He looks up and he sees LeBron James on the weak side, so he knows that's good. That cat is not near the basket. And now he's watching what Tristan Thompson does, which is start to move in this direction, which means now J.R. Smith's on an island. So Jaylen Brown puts on the Jets, and he's at the rim so quickly. One more dribble, extend. That's just great athleticism and great speed. Another example right here. Little turnaround by LeBron. And again, stop it. You've got 5 white jerseys behind the basketball. So this should be great defensive balance with 5 Cavs back. But instead, watch what happens. This is just a simple push. Look at the Jets at the speed, and this push leads to this. You now end up with 1, 2, 3, 4 guys in the lane, and here comes LeBron. So now focus on the trail area of the floor. It's caused by Jaylen Brown's speed on a play when the Cavs shouldn't allow that to happen. They're just a superior athletic team. And then one more time right here. Anytime you've got one guy on the offensive glass, you should not give up a play like this where Rozier is able to jet in the middle, get this basketball. And I love this part. He is toe-to-toe with LeBron James when he gets the ball. And LeBron puts his head down in this motion like he's coming out of the blocks. Typically, you know what that results in.
You're going to block.
Somebody's getting pinned at the rim.
Well, he cuffed it.
He turned it over on him, but he had enough separation to do that. It shows you the kind of speed he has. So Rozier, Tatum, Brown, I mean, their speed and just athletic ability and the different things they do to beat you offensively, Cleveland just doesn't have it at interstable.
You surprised?
No, I picked Boston to win the series. I didn't know that they would necessarily win both of these games. I think they are a better team, as Jeff alluded to, and they're proving it. And I thought tonight they put it all on display in that second half on both ends.
Remarkable close to the second quarter, and then the second half where Boston has demonstrated thus far that they are connected, they are a team, the depth of it in the fight and everything they got.
And an exhausting way to play offensively for Cleveland, relying on one guy to do that much.
And he seemed to run out of it. All right, we got plenty more to come, Tim. Appreciate the pass. What do we got on deck? Stephen A's coming, Ty Lue's coming. And we'll talk about these young stars on the Celtics squad. There are a bunch of them. And think, they lost their leading scorer and assist man in Kyrie, and they're still doing this in the Eastern.